So I'm Tyler Burgett. I'm with Project Management. And once we change the slide over, you'll see that I asked enough time, so they gave me my own slide with my picture on it. There we go. So the purpose of this meeting, the quality forum, for anyone who's new, this is our chance to share best practices and lessons learned and just connect with all of you. So we really appreciate you all coming out in person and those of you who were able to connect online. For those of you who are in the room, keep in mind, we have our microphones hanging from the ceilings. So keep in mind with sidebar conversations, recommend you keep them to a minimum because you might be online for everyone to hear. Or any annoying noises you make, those could also be online. We're also recording. So the idea behind that is that then the quality forum can be posted on our website for anyone who's not able to join this morning. Then they can listen to it from the website. And any of you can encourage your teams to get on and just, again, hear our lessons learned and best practices. So last time we met, we were discussing New Year's resolutions, and now already approaching September. And we've had some changes here. We have some familiar faces and new positions. This is our first quality forum with our new DCPME, Adelina Chacon, whom we all know and love. And we have our new DDE, Ed Kestery, whom we all anyhow, before we jump into our agenda, we'll kick off with a safety briefing. So we are at 719 South Woodland Boulevard in DeLand. Okay, would you call 911 if we have an emergency? Excellent. And Jay, would you alert the front desk in emergency? Do we have anyone CPR certified? Excellent. So we have a few. If we need to evacuate, we'll exit out these exit doors and we'll go across the street to Earl Brown Park. So on the occasion of an exit, just watch out for tripping hazards or anyone trying to trip you. Right, so we have a full agenda this morning. We have a couple breaks throughout for networking, restroom breaks. For those of you online, I apologize you're missing the hors d'oeuvres. For those of you in person, I'm sorry we don't have any hors d'oeuvres. But help yourself to our water fountain if you like a treat. Now, as our first order of business, Secretary Tyler wanted to kick us off. Opening remarks. Secretary Tyler.
See everybody again? Has it been, how many months has it been since?
Well, it's January, so 8 months. Well, we had it scheduled for May, and then because of our parking garage renovation, I apologize, we had to cancel last minute, if you recall. So,
We're gonna do this whole thing, my picture up there.
If he wants to go back to the agenda side.
How about we do that? Thanks for coming. We've been doing this for a long time. It's probably over a decade of doing these quality forums. So thank you for continuing to come back. We've come a long way, you know, in that decade. Do you think George Borchak would have ever made a joke about bananas? Probably not. So thank you for that, Tyler. All right, so I'll be brief. I only have a couple of things that I wanted to share with you all this morning. The first is, you know, it's that time of the year. We're going through another development of the work program. I can tell you with confidence, it's going to be another tough year. Right? Funding levels have never been higher. Costs have also never been higher. Costs continue to go up. Whenever we update an estimate, it seems to go up. I've asked them to stop. Update it again. But in all seriousness, we continue to be challenged with covering all of the commitments and needs in Central Florida with the resources that we have available to us. The revenue estimating conference, we always build a budget. We work within our means. The revenue estimating conference, it's a statewide collection of economists, and they try to predict where revenues are going to go. It's a slight decline. You know, they're being a little conservative with the uncertainty in the future. I don't know why, you know, presidential race, you know, or international events, all sorts of things going on. So they're giving us a little bit of a conservative, you know, slightly downward trend in our revenue projections, which basically means it's still going to be another big year because there's so many people coming to Florida and buying gas and registering vehicles. So we're still going to have lots of revenues, but it's not going up, you know, in proportion to the needs that we have. So costs have continued to rise. Funding is going to be, you know, largely flat in relative proportion to the needs. We're going to have another year of trying to make ends meet, balance the budget, and do the things that we need to do. So it's going to continue to, you know, to be tough, and we're going to have to make tough choices. We're going to have to prioritize on, you know, the critical things for our communities. But we will get through it. We've gotten through it every year. We'll continue to move ahead. One of the things that we're going to have to continue to keep sharpening our pencil on is resurfacing. And resurfacing is such a big component of our overall work program, and it's something that we must do. You know, we're mandated by the legislature to maintain our system, and we would want to do it even if we weren't mandated by the legislature. It's something that's going to continue to be a very prominent part of our program. We need to make sure that we're optimizing it at every phase, you know, from scoping to design services, to pavement design, to how we do CE&I. We need to optimize and squeeze every unnecessary dollar out of the resurfacing program. Every dollar that we can squeeze out is a dollar that we can use for something else: safety enhancement, capacity improvement, expanding what we're doing at the RTMC. We have all sorts of needs and desires for what we can do with the money, and resurfacing is something that we want to make sure that we're optimizing as much as possible. So as we move through the rest of this year and into the next, you're going to continue to see efforts from our teams on how can we continue to optimize. Appreciate your thoughts and feedback on that. Again, it's a dollar not spent on resurfacing will be a dollar spent on improving safety and mobility in our communities. So it's literally a dollar for dollar trade. So we're going to be trying to do that as much as possible. So more to come on that. The other thing that I'd like to talk to y'all about is something that I've been talking about in our executive team performance reviews. And that's addenda at bidding time. We have a little practice that we do once a month. The executive team gets together up in Tallahassee or around the state, and we talk about where we're going and how we're doing. And part of that is our performance review. And included in that performance review is, you know, the number of addenda, you know, that we have on projects. We finished last fiscal year, so our fiscal year runs July through June. District 5 finished last fiscal year with more addenda than projects left. Again, more addenda than projects left. And we were the only district to be so fortunate, you know, to actually have that kind of dynamic going on. It became somewhat of a joke. I was making fun of myself in the executive team meetings about, you know, how did we get here and where we're going with it. The way that we report on it, I call it, there's a wheel. It's a little circular graph, and it kind of, you know, as the number gets bigger, you can kind of imagine this, you know, this circular bar graph that kind of curls around, you know, like a clock. And, you know, first it'll show you the biggest number is the number of projects let, and then the next biggest number is like the number of addenda, and, you know, revisions and things of that nature. We broke it. 5 broke it because the algorithm always assumed that you would have more jobs let than addenda. It actually reversed the bar graphs. I'm probably not explaining it very well. A picture, you know, says 1,000 words. I've started calling this thing the addenda wheel of pain, because every month we get to look at it. The entire state gets to look at, you know, how District 5 is doing with addenda, and it stands out, you know, pretty starkly. But that said, we want to find out the root cause of that. We want to understand what the phenomena is. I'm going to continue to sign any addenda that our project managers send my way, because every addenda is a good addenda, right? It's fixing something that's most likely going to cause us extra money in construction. In the financial conditions that we're in, I don't want to spend more money in construction. I want to get it all in the bid and then get it taken care of so we can move on to other things. So every addenda is a good addenda. Steve Braun said I should get t-shirts made that say that. So again, we're making fun of it. We're having some levity with the condition that we have, but it is something that we want to get better at. And I'm hopeful that, through these types of conversations, and some other things that are going on. Scott, are you going to be talking about that?
Yeah, you stole my thunder there, so.
Well, no, but you have the solution.
Yes, we do have.
Got the solution, and I can't wait to hear this solution. He does have a solution. And we're here to work with you on that solution. So I want us to get better. I do not want to get rid of addenda, for the sake of just having the numbers look better. I want to understand, what's the root cause and how do we get better as an industry, moving forward. But in the meantime, the addendas will be signed and they will be processed. We're going to try to learn from this experience. So, and we're starting off this fiscal year no better than last fiscal year. Weeks ago, we got our first report for the month of July, and we had 3 addenda for one job that was led. I'm gonna go through another year of it's good. We're gonna turn it into a positive experience and learn from it, and it's gonna be able to lift up the entire industry. And other districts are also having a similar phenomenon, having more addenda that they would like. They just were the only ones that seem to have more addenda than jobs, which means you can do the math. We're doing multiple addenda per job, but again, every addenda. The addenda is coming, but let's figure out how we can, get better as an industry. So with that, do we have time for questions? Sure. You said that reluctantly. Any questions from anybody here in the room while you got me? Well, from my ACEC liaison committee, come on, you guys have to have questions. What is the most burning question that your membership asks you guys?
Yeah, I'm gonna say the finances, condition of the budget, understanding, because we're all living through the uncertainty of trying to plan ahead. Is this gonna be a windfall year? Are we gonna be cutting staff? Are we gonna be adding staff? So that's the biggest thing that I hear when we're talking at meetings, et cetera. Is everyone's trying to understand, just like the district is, what that fog looks like, what's on the other side.
That's definitely something to be thinking about. And I don't know exactly what the answers are, because it's kind of a dichotomy of, I think it is a windfall. I mean, fiscal year 25 statewide is going to be, another record breaking work program. We've never had so much money, but yet people are thinking about, am I going to have a windfall? Am I going to need to cut staff? How is it going to affect? So we're in a very unique, situation. But I mean, there has never been more money, and the money's not going down. It's just not going up at the rate that it needs to go up. And costs are rising. We finished the fiscal year statewide, I think it was about 8.4% over on our construction letting. So this is a number that compares, what we let the job for versus what we program the job for at the beginning of the fiscal year. So jobs get let all year long, but if you take the whole program ended up, we opened bids 8.4% higher than what we put into the work program a year before when we submitted it to the legislature. 8.4%. That's not that bad. We only had 8% being held as a contingency for those jobs. We barely didn't make it. But I mean, that 8% also, we want to be able to use that to cover, unforeseen issues. Like an addenda, that doesn't happen, that results in a cost overrun or a construction claim. That's why every addenda is a good addenda. So, we're in a pretty, I've never seen this type of financial situation, at the department. I've been through highs, I've been through lows. I've never been through one where like we've never had more money and felt like that we've never had so much challenge doing the stuff that we want to do with the money that we have available to us. So I get it, but money's going to flow. There's going to be, again, record-breaking spending, at the department as we move ahead.
Some of the other districts are pushing projects out, putting projects on hold. And probably in response to like what you were talking about earlier, do you see District 5 doing something similar or?
Oh, yes. It'll happen. Oh, yes, it will happen. Some of the bigger impacts are going to be in the SIS, the Strategic Intermodal System Program, which is where the majority of our capacity dollars go to SIS projects. Across the board, they've all gone up, significantly, and we have to balance the budget. So there are going to be some shifts in that SIS program. How that's going to look for District 5 still remains to be seen. We've got a handful of the highest priorities that we're really trying to focus on, making sure that they don't move, right? They're in the outer years. We don't want them to move again. We don't want them to move out of the work program, but it remains to be seen exactly, what we're going to be able to keep and what we're going to have to defer. But I believe that, some deferrals are going to be necessary to balance the budget. And again, that goes back to why it's so important to optimize the resurfacing program, because we spend billions of dollars on that resurfacing program. And if we can squeeze out, 20 million, over a 3-year period, I mean, it has a meaningful impact. And across the state, that 20 million can be times 10. Good question. There will be some deferrals for sure. I think every district is gonna be experiencing them. Well, good questions. Thank you for asking me some. And Tyler, turn it back up to you.
All right, clicker's working up here, so it's up here. Leonard's. I had to beg to have my picture on the slide. Secretary doesn't even want it. Okay. It's different personalities. Oh, quick note, if I may, anyone in the room who needs to leave early, if you could please swing to the back and drop off the badge that you were given in the front before you exit. With that, Elena Chacon.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Thank you all for being here, the online participants as well as the in-person one. As Tyler mentioned, I've been sitting here as the new DCPME for almost 4 months, and it has been pretty insane. I'm not gonna lie about that. I've been having marketing meetings with all of you, and you asked me how it's going. It is pretty insane. The work program is so big, so many projects that we have. So I ask for your patience as I still try to get my feet wet through this, but I'm very glad to have the team that I have. There's no way I could do this by myself. So I wanted to share with you the team that we have, starting off with our amazing admin, April Willis, who's sitting somewhere back there. Yes, there's also, I couldn't do this without her. So I appreciate all of her help. As you can see, we have 5 supervisors. We have Adam Agib, Todd Alexander, Megan Owens, Jennifer Link, and a vacancy right now. And then we have about 19 project managers and 4 contract managers. As you can see, we have some vacancies that hopefully we'll get to fill in soon. I knew that you guys were gonna pull your phones up here. far as CPM updates go, I wanted to, and some of them are going to resemble what Secretary Tyler just talked about. So I just wanted to remind you about our scope reminder, maintenance resurfacing projects. So the vast majority of the projects that we have in current fiscal year and upcoming fiscal years are going to be this maintenance resurfacing projects or POPs. So a reminder is that the scopes are very limited. It is milling and resurfacing, ADA updates, signing and pavement marking updates. So sometimes when we do coordination with the local partners, requests come up. So, and I'm saying no, but because we still community centric, we still try to do everything that we can, but we really need to vet this thoroughly. So I ask you to please keep that in mind when you're doing this coordination with the locals. Make sure that you're talking to your PMs, communicate to your PMs. We are asking now stakeholders to participate in funding partnering opportunities with the department. So we will look at them. It is going to be limited, but more than anything, the message that I want you guys to go back to the office with is keep this in mind. We cannot just say yes to everything, but we still want to partner with our locals. So make sure you're communicating with our FDOT PM. We will bring those here and we'll vet those stories. Cost control and essays. So that's my next talking point here. So as Secretary Tyler mentioned, where every dollar matters. That's what it's ingrained in my brain right now. Every dollar matters. So we basically I'm watching every request for essays. Is it absolutely needed for the project? Do we need this? Why wasn't this a part of the original scope? I'm asking all these questions. I'm asking them to the PM. So make sure you provide that support to your PMs. Make sure that when you're sending something like that is very justified, that is actually needed. In terms of cost control, so you live with the project for 18 months, however long the schedule for the project is, and you should be tracking the cost of the project. Talking about phase 52 right now, the construction cost. We shouldn't have any surprises between 60 to 90% cost increases, but if you do see them, again, they have to be justified. Why the cost increase? I know some of them are unit cost increases, and unfortunately we cannot control them, but if you have any feedback about the unit cost or anything, bring it up. I just want to talk about it and see if this makes sense or not. But what I'm asking you is, you are tracking this cost along the life of the project. If you see a red flag, raise your hand, talk to your PM, because in the past, you have to move lettings, because if we don't have all the money programmed for that project, then we have to move lettings. It also can cause a tip amendment, and those take time. We have to go to MPO, TPO, or meetings. We have to get the agendas. You have to get, it takes months to get into the MPO, TPO meetings. So just keep that in mind when you are designing your projects. For those of you who don't know, a tip amendment is triggered when you increase the cost of the project inclusive of all phases by 2% or $2 million. So it could happen really easily. So I'm sorry, 20% and 2 million, 20% and 2 million. So keep that in mind. I wanted you to keep this in mind as you design your project. Another thing I wanted to mention is sometimes we've had to go to the MPO, TPO meetings multiple times for the same project. And that does not look good for the department. We lose credibility on how we're managing the project and our ability to deliver the project. So that does not reflect good on the department. Another item that I wanted to talk about was quality in addenda or revisions that Secretary Tyler brought up. I am going to remember the addenda wheel of pain. I have experienced it 2 months already, and it is painful. So again, and I know that Scott is going to talk about it, so you're going to hear it all today for multiple of us here. But quality and revisions go hand in hand. When we do interviews for consultant selection, we always talk about quality, and it starts to sound like, oh yeah, they do it, but are you guys really doing it? And based on some of the data that we've pulled, I don't know, I think we could all do better. So you're supposed to turn in to a QA/QC of any document that's being turned into the department, and that's in your contracts and your scope to perform this quality controls. And unfortunately, I think we're not seeing that, and I think we can all do better. Like I mentioned, we had more revisions than projects that we let last fiscal year, and we're not looking good so far this fiscal year, which is 1 month into the fiscal year. So make sure that when you're doing your face middles, you're doing your QC per FDM, you're supposed to turn in a QA certificate of compliance to your PMs. I don't know if this is happening, but we have so many checks for these types of things that I don't know why we keep on seeing revisions. I want to echo some of your remarks, Secretary Tyler, that yes, the revisions when they're needed is so that we can have a good letting package. So we're going to process them, but some of the revisions are in your hands, in your control. When we look at the data, the vast of the revisions are because of missing pay items or missing quantities, or the quantities are not quantified correctly, or you don't have the right pay item. So again, that is tied to your QC. This is in your control. I'm asking you, what can you do better? How can we make this, want to get out of this trend of doing those? So I know that when we sit for staff presentations, you come and tell us everything that you firms do. Some of you have CEI on board. How can you leverage your CEI staff to do bidability and constructability reviews? Can they sit down, put the hat like a contractor and say, hey, I'm going to bid this project. What do I see? I think we can catch some of these things, some of those pay items and quantity discrepancies if you do that review. So I ask you to please really think thoroughly about this and come up with solutions and see what we can do. But I guess Scott has a solution too, so we're going to hear about that. Just checking my. Yeah, so just again, reiterate, this is something that I am watching. I know our leadership is watching. Tallahassee is watching, and you should all be watching this so that we can improve. Lastly, marketing meetings is one of my talking points, and I know Ed is going to talk on this, maybe Michelle and Scott too, but briefly, just be mindful when you're pursuing projects. We appreciate when you're strategic about pursuing projects, as well as we appreciate if you're strategic about those marketing meetings. So if you realize that through the consultant selection process, you are no longer going to participate or pursue another project, make sure you're reaching out to our staff to cancel those marketing meetings, because then you're taking an opportunity from another consultant that really wants to pursue their project. And then finally, best practice feedback. When I've had marketing meetings with some of you, I always tell you, I want to hear your feedback. I want to see you guys do, perhaps you do business with other districts, with other states. Are there any lessons learned? Are there any processes that we can do better here? I want to hear all about them to see if we can improve what we do here and be more efficient. So you reach out to me, reach out to your PMs, reach out to our supervisors, and I'm open to suggestions and try new things. We can pilot things if that makes sense. That's all I have. Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Next, we have our UDDE at Kestory.
Catalina, slide up here.
Picture up there.
First question, well, unfortunately, everything I was going to talk about today, someone else has already said or is talking about, so I'm pretty much done. Easy. Is Tyler still on probation? My mistake. But no, so a few of the things I'm not going to cover them in detail, but I'm still going to talk about them, because the way we look at it, if you hear us say it 4 or 5 times a day, you'll get the message. This is really important. Let's look at this. So I just want to know there's several updates that are coming out. So one is to our FDM, where the new updates are coming out. There's several things in there related to target speed, some of our safety initiatives. We're going to give more clear direction on when those things should be used. So I know Isaac and Matthew Gallup are coming to talk about a lot of this stuff later. So I just want to let you know, be prepared, watch, pay attention to those things because they'll be important. They'll affect how you're going to do your plans production. New version of MUTCD coming out. There's going to be some minor modifications that will affect how you guys produce plans, so just be aware of that. Next gen plans, there's going to be some modifications to that. Matthew's going to speak about that. So that's another good thing, good topic. That's definitely going to affect how you guys move through the plans production process as well. And pavement designs, how we're going to approach that. Isaac's going to speak to that. Kind of a district preference. We're going to kind of modify just slightly how we're doing things. It's not going to have a huge impact, but just something you need to be aware of. So one thing I wanted to mention, I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure it's available to all consultants in our contact mail database. So if you don't know about it, you should find out about from your PMs, because you can sign up for that. You can go out there and customize it. And what you do is you receive updates on all department policies, publications when they get updated, so that you know when things are coming out, when things are changing. Any specification, like mandatory specification changes that come out, it alerts you to that. So that could be something, especially if you're close to production, there's mandatories that got to go in, it'll affect your spec package and how that gets produced. So just be aware of that. If you don't know where it's at, just ask your PM. We can definitely get you a link to that and get signed up for it. A few other things I wanted to cover. Now we're done with that. Revisions again. As Secretary Tyler mentioned, there's a circular graph. And the more addenda or revisions you have, the farther it goes around that graph. And District 5 was probably the only district that was able to complete a full circle. So as you can imagine, that's not a good thing to be leading the state in. Recently, I guess probably since the first of the year, this has been an ongoing issue we've had in our district for the last year of production. And many of the issues are related to pay items and quantities. So I know I've had several marketing meetings with many of you over the last several months, and that's one thing we'd always discuss and make sure to make a point of is talk about quality, revisions, addenda. And what I want to get your feedback on is, what do you think is causing this? Because we can't find a solution if we don't know what the problem is, what's causing it. So some of you have given me some good feedback on just the way we do some of our scoping, how we're going through our plans production, even going back to our model, how to develop our quantities from the model. There may be some issues there that we might be able to resolve and kind of update to fix some of that stuff. Like I said, there's been a lot of quantities and pay items, and our contractors, they have these plans for 2 weeks and they're finding all these errors. You guys have it for several, 2 years. So there's got to be something going on there. So what I would ask is, even outside the marketing meetings, if you have an idea or you think there's an issue, you can email myself, Catalina, even your PMs. Just drop them a quick email, tell them your thoughts, what you think maybe behind some of these issues. We can investigate it. Maybe we can improve the process and make it better for all of us. I mean, because when we do revisions, it's not just tough on you guys, it's tough on all of us. And this guy go through a process. Secretary Tyler's got to sign it. I got to sign it. There's several signatures in the process there. As you can imagine, people get busy throughout the day. So it's tough to get some of these revisions, especially when they're close to the letting deadline, to get those things resolved. Be aware of that. And if you have any ideas, please reach out to us. Last item is marketing meetings. Since Catalina mentioned, I know Michelle's going to come up and talk about it, and Scott, and I don't want to get too much into detail, but as they mentioned, be strategic on how you go after projects and which projects you select to reserve a marketing meeting for. I know a lot of you have marketing teams that just go out there and mass reserve meetings. So what I would ask you to do is just maybe step back and rethink your strategy. Just, if you're not really sure about a project, just kind of leave some space open for your other consultants to have a chance to get in marketing. And one thing, and I don't know if it's really clear to everybody, just because you don't schedule a marketing meeting doesn't mean you can't put a letter in. You may put the best letter in and get shortlisted. You never know. So just because you don't have a marketing meeting doesn't mean that you're not going to be considered for a project or an opportunity. And one of the issues too is when we have all these marketing meetings and a lot of them get taken up, especially in some of our more high profile projects, we get a lot of requests for additional marketing meetings. So that means the DD, the TRC, the project manager, we have to try to schedule all those meetings in that short period of time. And it's tough to do with everybody's scheduling. Everybody's just so busy with meetings, especially now we do a lot of virtual Teams meetings. It's so much easier to schedule a meeting. People's schedules really get booked up quickly. So that's another consideration. It makes it very difficult for Jennifer and her team to schedule meetings when, we're trying to do it last minute, and we're trying to grant, if you guys want a marketing, we're trying to do everything we can, try to make sure you get an opportunity to talk to you. I've talked to some of you. Sometimes it's just on the phone. I may just talk to you myself as DD, just to make sure you get an opportunity, to express any concerns, ask any questions you have about a project. We'll make sure, you get every opportunity you can. So that's really all I had to talk about. So if there's any questions, I can take those. Yes.
Going back a little bit, to costs. And also mentioning about local partners participating in LFAs. We're running into that. I won't mention specifics on one of my projects. And we hear, well, this is the way you've always done it. You haven't charged us for this delta. You know, FDM says, put this out there, but we want that out there. It's going to cost an increment, a delta more. And on smaller projects, that can make a big deal. So are we the only ones running into that? Because we hear the message about watching costs, and we're in the middle of it right now on just that situation where the local partner is kind of saying, well, wait a minute, we've always done it this way. Why do we have to put some money out?
Well, and I assume you mean, are we the only ones in, you talking about just our district or our area? But I can tell you, the other districts, just from our statewide meetings, they're facing the same issues we are as far as costs. I don't know if they're always approaching the same way we are, but everyone's kind of in the same boat. And so something we've been doing, we don't expect you to do it. So we reach out to locals in a lot of our meetings, and we've sent this message that, look, costs are going up. We just don't have the kind of projects we've been doing the last couple of years just isn't sustainable in today's economy. And they know that. So we've told them one way to do that is just because we don't have the funds or the budget to do all these extra things during resurfacing projects, that doesn't mean if you have available funding, we can't partner and get these additional, requests into projects. So we've told them that. I've been to Metro Plan a couple times. I've delivered the message. And again, I know Matthew, I believe, or Isaac's going to come up and talk about our payment only projects and give that message again. I've done it a couple times. And I've been to Metro Plan as well as some other NPOs and other cities and local municipalities. And when we talk to them, that's an issue we've told them that into budget concerns, that as much as we like to put these extra things in the projects, it's just not feasible at this time. So, but we've let them know that partner opportunity. If you have money, you have funds you can contribute to the project, we can discuss that. And we actually been pretty successful. I think where the issue really come is that they weren't prepared for this kind of budget issue, and they weren't aware that we were willing to partner with them, take the additional funds and get that stuff into the project. Once we started talking to that, open up the communication, they realized that was an option. Like I said, I know we had some concerns from a few municipalities, but when I went to Metro Plan, we started discussing this. I spoke to them afterwards. They were pretty good. They understood the situation and they were more than willing. And they, some of these municipalities, they do have additional funding, that just because of, like Secretary Tyler mentioned, all the additional funding coming in through taxes and just people coming into Florida, they do have extra funds in many cases to contribute, and they have been willing to do that. And there's some things that we're asking to do that isn't out of the norm. So like landscaping, hardscaping, that's kind of been a standard practice that we've asked them to contribute and pay for that and maintain that. Mast arms, if they want upgraded or painted mast arms, that's something traditionally we've always asked them to contribute to. So that's nothing different. They're pretty familiar with that. It's more of some of the other things we've been doing, we've been adding to our scope that's traditionally not in a resurfacing project over the last couple of years, that just with the budgets, it's just not sustainable. So those are the issues that we've been discussing with them and we've been adding to the project. So good question, Doug. But well, one thing I want to say real quick, I have to mention it just because you mentioned it, I almost forgot. I-75, just because of the budget resurfacing is bigger than ever. Well, that's because of moving Florida forward projects. And one of those is our I-75 projects here in District 5. So I just wanted to give you guys a brief update real quickly on that. So the I-75 corridor through Sumter and Marion counties, we split that. It's 30 miles long. So we split it in two projects. South one's 22, the north one that goes mostly through Marion County is 8 miles. So the south one, we have awarded it to a contractor, Anderson Columbia. Atkins is their consultant on that. It's a phase design build. We're moving through the planning phase right now, negotiations. So we expect to have that wrapped up in just about a month or so. Once we do that, we're basically start moving on to the design portion and hope to have something out into construction this year, early spring. That project. North segment. That one, the planned ad is out there. Kind of put that on hold, delayed it a little bit because the I-4 projects are also advertising. They have some modified phases on build. So we have a similar contracting pool. So to make sure we're successful, we get the right amount of bidders, we've kind of just put ours on hold for a couple of weeks, let them go first. Once they get through their advertisement selection, then ours will probably go live. We're looking at probably early October for that one. So just stay tuned. It's good. Thanks.
Next, we have Scott, presenting ACEC.
This is an ACC update. Is it 30 minutes? Yeah. As, I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. As I said, my name is Scott Perfader. I'm Chair of the District 5 Liaison Committee. With me this morning is David Reed with Protean Design Group, also on the committee. And I've been insured online is Sunsaray Gates with VHB, Mark Hales with Ardura, and Matt Price with HNTV. So we've got everything covered. If you don't know, in short, your liaison team is here to help you and your business be successful by providing information, providing perspective. That's actually something I do quite a bit, and supporting the strengthening relationship you and your firm have with the district. Among other roles, I've just accepted a statewide role over all of the district liaison committees throughout the state. So that's put me much more closely working with leaders in Tallahassee here very recently. So when the agenda says ACEC update, it's going to be surely a little bit about District 5, but it's also going to be about current priorities that we're hearing from the leaders in Tallahassee. So in my short time, I want to touch on just 3 topics again. Quality. And I don't really want your eyes to glaze over when you hear quality. My remarks aren't going to be just another do better warning. I'd like to take a different approach. The district was nice enough to share the revision data that you've heard about several times. We received the revision data from the last 3 fiscal years. It tells a story. And part of that story is that there's a lot going on in that period of time during bidding. Mandatory spec revisions, stakeholder requested changes, even suggestions from contractors through bid questions that the district makes the decision they ultimately want to accept and include in the plans. But very consistently over the last 3 fiscal years, there has been a trend with pay item and quantity discrepancies that you've heard about. Anywhere from 25 to 40% of all plan revisions in District 5 over the last 3 fiscal years have been as a result only of quantities and pay item discrepancies. So again, a different approach. By a show of hands, who here thinks they or their firms are good at putting together quantities, pay items, want all of that into a set of plans by a show of hands? We don't have a lot of hands going on. We don't have a lot of, we got a whole nother issue. So, based on what I know now, statewide concerns about quality, specifically related to quantities and pay items, ACEC's response is to put together a task force do away with quantity and pay item discrepancies in plans during bidding. We have Target Zero and Vision Zero that you hear, about in our safety world. I'm terming this, and I don't have approval yet from ACEC to call it this, but we're going to call it Goal Zero. The goal to eliminate all pay item discrepancies and quantities. And just as sure as you're sitting there, you're saying, well, wait a second, that's not possible. And as Lorene is, famous for saying, if the number's not 0, what number are we okay with as an industry? Messed up pay items, quantity busts, what number would be okay? And we'll put that in under Goal 5, Goal 2. So all of you all that raised your hands, did we get them? All of you that put your hands in the air, we need your help. We need your best ideas, and we need them quickly, very quickly. And although I have respect for experience, I'm really looking for some younger folks to get involved, to really weigh in on the things they're seeing in the production of the plans and what ideas they have that they can bring forward. So my contact information is somewhere online. You can find it. I'd like to hear from you, and I need to hear from you quickly. There is no reason, in my opinion, this should take months and months to do. Whenever you hear task force, I know I always exhale like, okay, sure. But we want to be very quick about what we're doing and have concrete examples that we can vet with our district partners, our DOT partners, and announce to the industry before the year's end. Topic 2, workforce development and engagement. District 5 is prioritizing the statewide workforce development initiative by continuing to invest in events and things that bring more interested people to the transportation industry in Central Florida. And ACEC wants to be a part of this effort. And here's just a few things that are coming up in Central Florida. The annual golf tournament at Aliqua Lakes in Longwood, scheduled for November 4th. Everybody has that invite? You don't, let me know. The CCD event is scheduled for January 30th and 31st at the Volusia County Fairgrounds. And the district, as I understand it, is also planning a workforce development initiative on I-75 in conjunction with the I-75 projects next spring. And this is big. District 5, in fact, Secretary Tyler has asked us, again, there's a theme here, for our ideas about how the workforce development initiatives can bring more value as consulting. And typically when you go to those events, there's a lot of contractors, some oftentimes on-site hires of laborers, things like that. How can we make those events more meaningful and more valuable to the engineering profession? So we need your ideas. As for engagement, you should know, because really I now know that statewide, District 5 makes the most effort to engage with the industry. Here's what I mean. This quarter, as in most quarters, you have this event since January. This isn't done everywhere. They don't have to do it. They have a packed agenda to share with you. On October 24th, ACEC will host the second annual An Evening with District 5 leadership event. That's to strengthen the relationship we have with District 5 leadership. Secretary Tyler and all his directors will share their evening with us. This fall and winter, Secretary Tyler will again host meetings with firm principals in a small group format to exchange meaningful ideas directly with the consulting industry. This isn't done anywhere else. Michelle Sloan, who you'll hear from after the break, will again reach out shortly, or just did this morning, to all consultants who won contracts in the previous quarter, seeking one-on-one dialogue with you about the acquisition process, everything from marketing through negotiations. Nothing has been off the table. A lot of good ideas are coming in. That's not done anywhere else in the state. And on November 20th, District 5 will host a development industry forum to again engage with the industry and discuss the business of transportation development. Done very few places. So imagine working in a district where some or all of these things don't happen. Maybe some of you do. I do. We're very fortunate to be working here in District 5. All of this and more, given my 45-minute limit, I can't get into. So let's not take that for granted. And finally, on the procurement side, some good news. We've seen the concerns from a procurement standpoint really fall off. I don't get any calls at all at this point about procurement issues, and that's a good thing. But there is another issue we need your help with, and they've alluded to it a bit here, and maybe even that principal or the marketing lead back in your offices, we need their help too. Recently, we're noticing that all these marketing meeting opportunities are being taken, sometimes blanketly so. The cap's released. They're just, somebody goes in and secures a meeting for everything. And it's been so bad that in one or two cases, the district has actually reached out to that firm. Maybe there's a better way, right? This does two things that aren't helpful. As Catalina said, it takes opportunities away from your consultant friends who have done their work to make an honest assessment of their opportunities on this project. And as a result of a go, no go process, secure a marketing meeting. But two, it takes time away from your district partners. What we're finding, or what I'm hearing, is that oftentimes these cancellations are coming in within 24, 48 hours of the actual marketing meeting. There's not enough time for any consultant to pivot, grab one of those slots. So if you're wondering if the district notices that, they do. And they don't like it. So that's one of the things we want to watch. Michelle's got some data that she's putting together. We'll do a deeper dive into that data. Again, the data will tell us the story, and we'll share that with you. The solution is very simple though. Make an honest assessment of your competitive position through a go, no go process, secure the marketing meeting, and keep the marketing meeting as the commitment it is to the district said it. So finally, just in closing, I'd like to again ask for your feedback on the quantities and the discrepancies, any of the other things that we've talked about here today. I'd like your feedback. ACEC as a district team can only be as successful as the feedback we get from our membership. That, I'll answer any questions. No questions from my district liaison team, right? My DOT partner.
Thank you. Got, next, we've got specs and estimates. We have Christine McComo, Beth Carlson, Cindy Wolcott. Thank you very much.
Hey, good morning. I'm Christine McComo. I'm the district plan specs and estimates engineer. We're happy to be here. It's been a while since we've been at the Quality Forum. We're happy to be here to share some information and some tips during the PSNE review phase that hopefully you see the tie-ins to a lot of the points that were made with project costs and quality, some of the initiatives we have at the district. So hopefully you find what we're sharing as helpful. I have with me today Beth Carlson. She's our district estimates manager, and Cindy Walcott, one of our specs coordinators. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Beth to get started.
Good morning. I see a lot of familiar faces. I feel like everything I'm going to talk about up here has already been spoken about, but we can give it. Okay. So I'm going to talk about your estimates and how we really need to get a hold of them. We just finished the work program update cycle, which I think there has been a lot of confusion about. Go through every phase, but every year we'll update your estimate regardless. We want to take a snapshot in time of what your cost is, and then we'll manage that with the work program. So if you're having some issues, we really need to know about it. Like phase 2, for instance, a lot of people get confused about where their project should be or how much we're missing is an issue. We have your project in ERC. It'll come through, it's on time, we make our comments. Sometimes the comments aren't addressed, so we'll wait, we'll hold off on taking that snapshot, and that really affects our work program. So I want to make sure that we're getting that, especially at phase 3. It's really, really important to get your project updated for unit costs at all phases, but especially at phase 3, when your comments aren't addressed, you're in the midst of updating all of your pay items and quantities, you're in the final run, you're finishing up, you're finalizing all of your pay items and quantities, and then you don't take the time to address your comments for phase 3, you never get that snapshot. Management uses all of these snapshots. They feed right into our Project Suite Enterprise program, and they can see all of these snapshots at any given time. So they'll use these to make decisions whether or not your project should be moving forward, all of that. Just wanted to make sure that we're communicating. And as a reminder, you can take that snapshot until all of those comments are addressed. Okay. And then for submittals, we have all of this guidance out there that can really, really help you. Phase 2, we want to make sure your project is loaded up in transport with quantities of 1, and that your LRA is up to date with the proper project unknowns. Because again, we want to make sure that you have the right amount of money for your project when it comes to letting. A lot of the times we see a lot of mistakes being made, like, oh, we forgot to add this, we forgot to add this, and a little bit of this and a little bit of that adds up a lot. So we don't want to get into a tip situation where, oh, at final, then you have to move your project out 6 months because we have to get more money now. You've exceeded the 20%. So with that, we have your projects in transport should be very, very good. Your quantities should be on spot. And that's why we get into revisions. So I felt drum, but hopefully, if you have anything specific, where we run into a lot of issues lately is things that are just overlooked, special detours, special anything. So we need your input on those too, because when we're estimating the project, we're not really quite sure what it is that you're doing. So communicate with us and let us know what you have going on, especially for local funds. That's usually an unwelcome surprise at the end of a project when you're ready to submit production that, oh, there's local funds. Nobody told us. But that's a big issue, and that could also cause a tip-stip situation. All right, that's really much all I have.
Just to go over one of our main resources that we have for you on our website, and that's at the bottom, the link. We have lots of information that can help you through the PS&E review phase as you're preparing your packages. Things like checklists that are good to go through when you're doing your QC review to ensure you have all the parts you need. A lot of the issues that we see, that's in the checklist, and flow charts that shares, you know, what to expect, what's gonna happen during the review cycle. Things that help you guidance in preparing your packages, your spec packages, estimates, and agendas, preparations, anything, meetings that you're having with us. A lot of information is available on our website. So we just wanted to highlight that for folks who aren't familiar with it and haven't reviewed it yet. So I just encourage you to go out there. And then just a quick overview of our PS&E activities for those that are new. Everything really kicks off with that pre-spec meeting for us. That's where we're getting to know what your project is, what information you have. We like to talk through things that have been lessons learned in the past so that hopefully we can resolve or start moving and resolving some of the issues that we've seen in the past, so that when you get to production in your PS&E submittal, that it's not as difficult. Hopeful that the comments are minimized at that point. When you do submit your PS&E package, the first thing we're going to do is an initial review that will just check, hey, are all the parts even there? Can we begin our review? So once we've determined all the parts are there and that we can start a review, we'll let your PM things that hold up the advertisement or affect some of the bidding. Is all of that okay and good to go? But it's not a QC. So we're not deep diving into any type of design elements there. And then we go back and forth. We will share, obviously, any comments we have that seem to be concerns with the package. We'll go back and forth until we can address all of those concerns. And we ask at that during this time that no changes to project suite are being made. Anytime changes to project suite are made, we have to sort of start the review all over again. So it can really delay the review process for us and for you. Ultimately, once all the comments are addressed, then we ask you to submit within Project Suite your transmittal package, and we'll package it up and have it ready for central office final plans or district contracts. I know revisions were talked about. If a revision is needed, hopefully we can minimize that. But if a revision is needed, we go through the same process where we're going to have to, do another comprehensive QA of whatever is submitted. One of the two things that I wanted to point out is some of our biggest comments are no clouding during design revisions. That's a construction thing. So that could easily be one thing to check before you're submitting a revision package. Don't include clouding, and matching things in your package. So if you say on your revision memo one thing, ensure that throughout the package, it's the same in your revision block in your plans. It's the same in your revision block in your EQ report. So just ensuring that things all match up, that would be helpful as well. And then just to let you know, our group, our participation ends after advertisement and letting, when we go and our estimates group does a bid analysis to assist the awards committee in making decisions on the award. And then I think, you know, Cindy, you're gonna go through.
So as Christine had indicated earlier, we just wanted to highlight some of the challenges that we're consistently seeing when we're doing our detailed specs review, our QA, as you described it. By addressing them here, I'm hoping to possibly eliminate some comments and educate you on some of the newer changes that we've had in the specs department. So lately, project limits have been inconsistent throughout the project documents. I've listed some on the slide, some definitions to assist you with your limits. But basically, the project limits must be consistent through all of these following items. The key sheet of the plans, PSEE. If any changes are needed, the PM would need to put in a request through PSEE to have that changed. If the PM has any questions on how to do that, there is instructions located in the work program SharePoint site that can assist with that, but it would need to go through PSEE to have that change done. The specs package, the scope and intent special provision in your specs package. We ask that you include the scope, project limits in the county, but this information is used for the advertisement, so we want to make sure it's correct and consistent throughout the package. And of course, the transmittal memo. The PM completes the transmittal memo. We want to make sure it's consistent there as well. And if there are no bridges, make sure you put 0 in there for any miles for the bridges. That seems to be left out quite a bit. But just little tips on project limits to help through that process. General notes, always a crowd favorite. The FDM defines what general notes are, what they should consist of. I've included that definition as well. The majority of our comments come from notes that are already addressed in the standard specs or the standard plans or special provision that you've included for the project. Please do not repeat the standards. They're there for a reason, vetted. So repeating them is not necessary. Make sure all of your items are written in the active voice, imperative mood. In other words, remove all those contractor shalls. They don't belong in there, according to the FDM. Do not include any proprietary products in your plans. I'll cover that in a minute, but those are now in MSPs, in modified special provisions. So we don't need any of them in the general notes. And always start your general notes with a blank sheet. Every project is different. And then include just the project specific information. Don't go to another project, take those general notes and stick them in this one because they don't always apply. So please always start with a blank sheet. Special provision requests. This is specification guidance. Like estimates had their guidance sheet. We have a specification guidance sheet as well. It's located at the pre-spec meeting to letting site that Christine had spoke about earlier. It includes step-by-step instructions on how to obtain an approval for a developmental spec, a modified spec, or a TSP. We have pretty laid out directions on how we need to achieve each one of those. Due to BABA requirements, the Build America, Buy America requirements, approvals are taking more time than usual to obtain. So as you know, in order to get a special provision approved, please submit them as early as possible. Earlier, the better. And submitting through ERC is not submitted. I need you to go ahead and send them on to your PM. Be sure to review your pay items for any items that require a particular special provision. You'll see that listed out in the BOE, whether or not it requires it. Submit your special provisions correctly formatted using the style guide for specs. It too is on our website and that'll assist you with the formatting. And please understand that submitting a request at the time of production does not guarantee approval by transmittal. So we want to make sure we have all these approved, so we need to get them in as soon as possible. And lastly, proprietary products. With the fairly recent Build America, Buy America requirements being presented to us, we have had to adjust the way that we are addressing proprietary products in our projects. Please understand this continues to be fluid. It's a learning curve for all of us, so we're working through it. But these are some tips for success, I'll call them. Be sure the product information listed in the APL matches the proprietary product certification that you're getting from your locals, and the MSP. If you have a specific model number, include that as well, as long as it's part of the APL list. We need a fully executed proprietary product cert in order to review your MSPs. We got to make sure everything lines up. We need to know that it's been approved and concurred by the district. We need that as well to submit it into central office. If a product does not have an APL number, you need to contact product evaluation prior to sending it in, because they'll give you instructions on how to move forward with that product, whether or not it needs to go through an approval process or whether or not it could be a specific project approval. All items on the PPC must have an MSP. Modifying the relevant article or sub-article, typically it's the materials section, using track changes. So we'll ask that, you prepare your MSP for every PPC. And lastly, please, once again, I said this on the general notes page, do not name any proprietary products in your plans as they are included in an MSP. So basically what I was just trying to do was hopefully provide you with some tips and some information that could be helpful. Does anyone have any questions for any of us in the PS&E department?
Question on the general notes, not restating it. Does that also apply to the TCP notes? Because I don't know how many times I've had to put what standard plans I'm using, which kind of seems like I'm doing that more for the reviewer and not for the contractor. Probably knows for a single lane closure what standard that is.
So do you need to, you do not need to
You like write that in an email?
now,
It's not just this
we should
district,
comment.
it's every district. Like 4 or 5, 7, it doesn't matter what district I've always, for some reason, and then the latest craziest request I got was I start putting the sheet number of the standard plans that I'm now referencing. And it's like, well, who are we doing this for? Over time, it seems that the department has done a really good job of limiting what we put in the plans, because it used to be we had to put stuff just for reviewers, and now we're focusing on what does the contractor actually need to require to build it. And this is just one of the things that's kind of stuck with me. Like, why do I keep having to put what standard index they need to use?
So if I see that comment in the comments, I will make a comment indicate, it's not necessary to put that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
It has always been a struggle of, reviewers. We know what, we don't put the stuff in, and then we get that review comment to add the stuff in, and then it ends up going back and forth a couple times through, maybe make it to a phase 2, phase 3, and then you guys see it, and then like remove this note because of, for the exact reason you're talking about. So it always seems to have been not just in District 5, but other districts, like always a disconnect between reviewers asking for stuff, we putting it in, and then it ultimately coming out because it doesn't meet this requirement, because y'all take it out.
Right. Now, I can't answer for other districts or whatnot, but I know in the ERC comments, we're making those ERC comments, and they could be several months back, could be a year back for all we know. And you make those comments based on the time period you're in, the instructions you have, and the information you have. Now, I can't guarantee that things don't change between then and now, which they do. Things become fluid.
That just goes with the previous question and comment of, we're asked to put stuff in, and then it's
to take it out.
You're pulled it out, so.
Right. And, I don't know how to answer that other than, we try and do our best at the moment we're in to make a comment based on the instructions we have. And then sometimes things do change, and then, we'll tell you at production when we do our detailed review where we stand at this point. And of course, if you have any questions about any of them, and we appreciate the comments that y'all give back, that's important too. We want you to respond to our comments so that we understand your perspective of what you put it or a question about it. I like that. It helps. So I definitely appreciate that. Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
On the estimates, some of the discrepancies or increases sometimes can tend to be for the percentage pay items. mobilization or MOT or unknowns. Can you just talk a little bit about how those should be used and adjusted it for different phases?
We should always be using the standard percentage for MOT and MOV. For design build projects per se, there's a different percentage for those. But we're accounting for money that we're going to be using later, project unknowns, like. Those can be the recommendation of the EOR. Like, we might be a little bit on the cautious side. But then as you progress in your phases, like for phase 2, there's no more project unknowns. So generally, we're using 10% for mobilization and maintenance of traffic after it goes into transport, and then everything else should be quantified.
Well, thank you all very much.
Just a quick reminder, I know there's some valuable content on the slides, and they'll all be posted with the recording on the Quality Forum website later as well, so you can all view those. Before we take a brief break, we have one more item. Matthew Gallup representing our roadway design office.
Make it quick that we're not holding up your break. For those who don't know me, my name is Matthew Gallup. I am one of the roadway engineers here with the district design unit. And today I'm going to be talking about 3 different topics, kind of touching on kind of a higher level, not really getting super into the weeds on them, but things to be on the lookout for. First one is maintenance resurfacing projects. I think everybody's familiar with what the scope is, as mentioned earlier, on what that project entails and constraints that we're working with. Our scoping team does try their best on identifying, what constraints we have available, or what constraints we have and what resources we have available, and try to provide the best product with those constraints. Something that I just want to point out, though, with these maintenance resurfacing, because it does alleviate, Chapter 114 requirements, because of that difference in project type. We don't want to turn a blind eye on certain elements, safety elements. So sometimes we have developments that come in post scoping, even through your project design. So if there's a significant safety issue that you may have some high benefit cost ratio availability, please bring that up. It's kind of one of the see something, say something situations. We don't know it until it's brought up. Bring it up to your FDOT PM, and then we can vet it through internally with the department to figure out, what is the best course of action for that item. I'm not saying it will be in your projects. I'm not saying that it's something that we'll entertain at that time. But again, it's the idea of see something, say something. If you're looking for those substantial BC type of improvements, and ultimately making sure that we're not having major gaps with safety, and, ultimately making sure that we're putting a safe transportation system, even with our constraints. Next item, as it was mentioned earlier, I'm just going to touch on some next gen plans updates that you guys will be seeing in the next FDM release. And potentially some bulletins might come out. It's not clear on whether we will see those or not. But first and foremost, with next gen plans that many people are familiar with is the large format plans. Those are now out. So pretty much 11x17 plans is what we'll be moving forward with. For projects that are new, haven't started plan production efforts, or those that are not substantially completed where you would require essay in order to update, you guys may continue to use large formats. That will be kind of in that transition period. But any new or ones that are pretty much started out, maybe just laid out the clips and not even, text labels, we do have the expectation of those to be updated to 11x17 plans. And the 11x17 plans is for all sheets, all disciplines, not just roadway, not just signing marking. It's going to be consistent throughout. Again, FDM, or the next FDM release will have more guidance on that. Next major item is cross sections, roadway cross sections. Previously, past couple of years, we've had the worksheets for the cross sections going in for ERC reviews and pretty much just go into project suite at the conclusion of the project. Cross sections are going back into the roadway component set as a sign and sealed component of those plans. So again, similar story. If you guys have not had that plan production efforts already done, go ahead and start putting them in there. Pretty much when you have upcoming projects, consider with your staff hours developments, with those cross sections going in, consider what efforts are going to be needed there. Similar with the plan sheets, with the large format changes, there are some sheets that are set up specifically for large format. So when you're negotiating with your advisors, have that discussion with them of what you feel is reasonable, taking consideration with the ORD, how their efficiencies are with the plan development. And, ultimately, we're here to negotiate on what is appropriate and fair for the project. Next item that I want to talk on is payment designs. So pretty much, I think everybody's been notified or should have been notified of this, but just in case you haven't received anything from project management, is for payment designs, we are looking at reducing the resurfacing project design lives, going to 15 years. It does not matter what kind of roadway facility it is. It doesn't matter if it's limited access. Doesn't matter if it's arterial collectors. All resurfacing is anticipated to use the 15-year design lives. So one thing that we just want to make sure of is that you guys are capturing when you get your traffic reports coming in from our traffic forecasting group. Make sure your ESAL numbers are reflecting that 15-year design life. You guys should be able to calculate that out. Even if you get the full 20-year report, you can back calculate out your 15-year values. Something to note, new construction, reconstruction, and widening, those we would still anticipate 20-year design lives. They're pretty much something new going in. Next item, so kind of going into that contact mailer that Ed had mentioned earlier, the company that you guys would have received notification on if you're signed up for it. The friction course policy has changed. Roadway Design Bulletin 24-03, I believe it is, has come out already, reflecting this. Ultimately, FC5 is going to be utilized only on limited access facilities. Now, some of the ramps, those you just coordinate with the payment design engineers on when those would be utilized for ramps, or FC5 would be utilized on ramps. But ultimately, these items, again, it's for the implementation of this, actually both of these items, it's the same story. If you guys are starting out brand new or not substantially completed with the designs, we do have expectation that these are implemented in your designs. Basically, if it's something that is going to require SA territory, y'all will proceed as what you have now. With that, leave that there. Questions?
A couple. One, we're adding cross sections back into the plan set. Are we going to need to have area volumes and like earthwork volumes on that? Because I don't know if the sheets even have that.
The question was about cross-section sheets, whether the earthwork volumes would be shown on the sheets. So I'm glad you actually brought that up. We do not have guidance yet on how the cross-section sheets are to be, if they're going to put those back in, and any additional data that is going to be put on there besides what was on the worksheets. Still trying to hear back from central office. They're still working out that development, but we anticipate to try to get some guidance from them, hopefully sooner, but if not, with the next FDM release. And then you had one more.
Yeah, regarding the FC5, isn't it required for anything, and like in the payment design manual, is it required for anything with levels, traffic level E? I believe. Like you can't use 12 and a half.
It's going to be changed. There are changes, so the flexible payment design manual is going to be updated. Pretty much because of the issues that we're seeing with FC5, particularly with arterials, because of turning movements and whatnot, we have significant rutting occurring. So because of those challenges, we are moving away or providing alternate methods of, that friction course.
And then regarding it, the location on the ramps, is it, that's still an LA facility? Like, I guess I ran on that, like, where was the cutoff?
I am not the district payment design engineer, so I don't want to overstep. I would say just coordinate with Rebecca Plumley on the current position of whether open graded is going to be used on ramps or not. Because there are certain situations where the forces that you have during that curvature in the ramp, you come with the same issues of raveling and whatnot. So I would say just coordinate. Brian.
Two for you, Matt. First on the plan on next gen, has there been any discussion on the SRCC and erosion control? I've yet to see anything come out about that. Whether the erosion control plans are going back in, or we're going to stick with the SRCC process. And then second on the FC5, any discussion about those high-speed rural arterials that are long and straight, where there may be a, high wet weather crash, instance where FC5 would make sense?
So for the first question about the stormwater, plan,
It's basically we're now doing like a roll plot that gets thrown into the permit plans, or into the permit folder, instead of erosion control plans. Or before, we'd either throw it on roadway plans or have a standalone EC set.
I am not aware of what changes are coming up. I know that they will be, throughout all of FDM is going to be reformatted to address the 11x17 sheets. I don't have particulars on what the specific changes are going to be for that. For FC5, again, the current direction is going to be, limited access facilities only. Now, if there's certain situations of, concern, feel free to bring those up, but ultimately there needs to be a really strong justifiable reason. But, pretty much we're trying to move away because of those rutting situations or issues that we have. We're trying to be more aware of what we're putting out there. Yeah, that's it.
Much. We will take a quick 5-minute break, come back into the agenda.
Yeah, that's why I went when I did. I kind of like saying. Okay, yeah.
Into our agenda.
Let's work close, please.
Right. So we just want to keep things interesting, so we're switching up the agenda a little bit. We're gonna have Jeremy do more. Now with the implementation.
Yes, sir.
Something I gotta live up. Okay, we're talking about here is that there's been a couple of different implementations in that we have done and. Or it's not going the right way. Does it have phones? Oh, I can just push a button on there.
No, we're good. All right, there you go. Should work now.
All right, cool. All right, so we're looking at here is I got a couple pictures from the Sand Lake DDI. The good news is as we go through and implement these, every time we do, we learn something new, which is another opportunity to be able to share some of those lessons learned. For those that have not seen pictures from a construction scene before about what's going on, one thing to really notice is you see those barrel spacing, you see how tight that is. I cannot over exaggerate how close together those barrels are. They're literally touching against. When we went through this particular implementation, I went the wrong way. There were a couple of things that let's go ahead and incorporate into a different aspect is one controller. You'll see that people trying to run these with overlaps, trying to go ahead and program those overlaps sounds great until someone goes ahead and severs the communication between the two controllers. Once that ends up happening, then you get out of step with one another and things go very, very badly, very, very quickly. So what we've been doing is the projects that have been going out to construction. If you're an EOR on it, you've seen that we've gone ahead and actually asked for changes during construction to move it over to a single controller. The other thing that tends to happen is we see where they out in the field, they'll go ahead and wire flash to yellow. We do not want a yellow flash for DDI, fairly obvious, but something also that does need to be go ahead and noted because we have seen that as an issue out in the field. This is, I think if you hit this, I think this is actually a video. You can see this is actually us driving through from the TMC. One of the things that we do during the, and if not, we'll jump onto some of the next ones. They've definitely got it. So when these open up, we actually drive these corridors. We take a look at them from all different angles, not just how it looks from the bird's eye view, but we actually have some of our vehicles that are instrumented with front and rear view cameras. We drive through them and are actually looking at them during the construction process and coordinating with construction in real time about making changes. So this particular running through the crossover, we went ahead and do that basically the first hour that it's open during the daylight. And then provide feedback. We have changes, we run them. So we do that pretty consistently. So one of the key things is looking at the verification of channel assignments through the MMU. We can share a lot of details on this. What this has to do with is when we normally implement SOPs, we show them in some pretty simplistic manners that does not translate over to all the permissive phases. And what we've seen is we've had to swap out MMU cards on this particular controller 3 times now. So we now have just a standard. These are the permissive phases that we want to see there. It would not just be controlled by the SOP. If you do not know what an SOP or a standard operating procedure of a signal is, don't worry, your signal folks will. The key thing is there is a TSM&O meeting. Please sit down with us. We will go through what overlaps that we want to be able to see so that we can go ahead and have full flexibility in our timing because we do make changes on the fly. As we're seeing where queues are developing, there are many, many changes that need to happen, including our adjacent signals. And we'll get into those a little bit. A requirement on bench testing. This is going ahead and looking at the other overlap on the other side. And you can see that barrel space, and you can see the signal heads. We're checking all those things as we kind of go through them. When we're looking at this, bench testing the controller prior to implementation is generally a best practice. This is something that we coordinate with our construction office. It does help if there is some direction to the contractor that this does need to happen. The other thing that we need to look at is when we look at the existing signal, the ability for us to maintain comms becomes critically important. So having a maintenance and communication set of plans in there is really, really important. What we've seen is including not just how we can keep fiber communication active, we can always count on contractors to break that fiber at some point in time. So also going ahead and running cellular communication. I know that seems like overkill, but because these signals that are adjacent to one another, we have to keep them in close coordination. If we ever lose that comm, we're in deep, deep trouble. Inside the interchange, again, one controller, we go to adjacent, we want to be able to have cellular plus wire communication to them. If we're able to have that, we have redundancy, we have the ability to back up in case something does gets hit. Another that we can look at is pedestrian movements. If at all possible, please keep pedestrian movement when it's operating as a DDI in the center of the DDI. When we've gone ahead and put them on the outside, this comes into all sorts of issues. So once they run on the outside, now we have this movement that's permissive, that conflicts with the pedestrian movement that traditionally does not have a signal head controlling it. So it becomes a bit of a safety issue. This is going to just go a little further. You'll see some of the traffic moving through. You see here, this is where our PEDs were located within Sand Lake. They were on the north side of the interchange. This movement, this left that comes off, ideally we'd like to overlap it with when we're going ahead and running this crossover phase. What that then does though, is it puts them in conflict with the PEDs for the illogical movement of someone coming off the ramp and coming back through. So this becomes a fairly difficult issue to work out. For us to do that, we have to run really, really inefficient timings. When we get inefficient timings, the public notices that we just made this improvement where their commute just got longer. We get all sorts of feedback during construction. So to the extent possible, as roadway designers, try to keep them in the median through your construction phasing. It will be a big, big help to us. That's one of the directions that we go ahead and give. Signal heads using directional arrows. Certainly that helps with our crossovers just to make sure that they're maintaining their lane. And then one of the key things that we will end up doing is now 2 months before these actually go into implementation, we keep an eye on it with our CEI. We start establishing those lines of communication. We have a checklist of things that we go through from traffic operations to make sure everyone is in agreement with what the minimum amount of signs that have to be up before they move into that operation are, what the signal heads need to be looking like, what kind of detection needs to be in place, what kind of comm needs to be there. So whereas you'll be able to include some information in your plans, there's other information that we'll go ahead and try to relay with them for the sequencing of construction to make sure that happens. So you don't need to put a ton of the sequence of construction other than make it feasible that those PEDs get in the middle. That would be like the biggest ask we've got, if anything. Mentioned before that there is a pre-turn on checklist that we've got. This is something that we work out with our folks, our CEI. We go through signing and pavement marking, and we'll review what the current status is, what the final status is. We'll take your plans, we'll highlight specifically on there. These absolutely must be in place. If these are not here, you're not going ahead and moving forward with implementing the DDI. Our folks in construction, I think we've seen unfortunately too much in the way of drivers making incorrect decisions with our implementation, that I think that they're pretty well convinced these things also need to be there. We go through some of the signal operations as well as some of the specifics of how the MOT phasing will go on, what time of day it'll go on, what verification we have. Do we have a backout procedure if it looks like we're not going to make it in time? That's in addition to things that have been mentioned before. First set of a debrief on this, I think you guys saw contrasting pavement. See, this is brand new pavement that's down here. We clearly have our lane lines delineated. All those things are still what we want. These are in addition of things that we learned through our last set of deployment. So with that, that was the update. Any questions, comments? Go ahead.
Couple of questions related to the pedestrians. So one, especially with wanting to put them in the middle, which I agree with it. You have to cross that uncontrolled right. So I'm assuming you would want us to do that as an RRFB, just like the current FDM.
So that is what's in the current FDM. There's also where sometimes those are under, depends on which type you've gone ahead and worked out through the design process. But yes, we will definitely want to ensure that there is adequate warning for when pedestrians are trying to cross.
And secondly, if you're doing it in the temporary phase, a lot of times our RFBs aren't practical. Assuming you probably would want like more of like a mid-block signing approach, just the signage, additional signage for it.
That we look at is the ability for the pedestrian to be able to look at yielding condition, the ability for the driver to be able to go ahead and see. That's why you'll see that we drive these corridors, we look at those sight lines, and then we look at what are other type of temporary arrangements need to be in place in order to get that pedestrian across safely. So that could include saying, no, that we need to have the RFB in place early. We have to look at the visibility to it. So it is sequencing that is not typical for contractors, which is why we end up meeting with them usually months in advance, and then the date gets moved back at least one time. But we try to have that coordination, and that's why you see the lead time that we have.
Is that like more what we handle in the post-design services then, with working with the department and the contractor to kind of?
Generally, if you have enough in the plans of, hey, we've set up sequencing that we've looked at for the MOT that we have, and it's not prescriptive to the contractor. We are having these same conversations we're having with you, with our construction office, to let them know about what is feasible and what does lead to problems. I think they're very sensitive to the expectations of the public, being able to maintain adequate operations through the corridor. So you don't have to have a plan note for each one of those stages. You just have to ensure that your approach allows for the ability to construct the DDI that is not a sequence in place that requires them to put pads on the outside. Does that make sense? You don't have to lock them into being in the middle. You just have to make sure they can be. For one more question, then I'm going to have to run, unfortunately. Yes.
I know you mentioned about pedestrian. I think you covered less. Pedestrian in the median in this particular act for Sand Lake Road is not feasible because they needed a 40-foot median footprint to build the bridge piers.
Yes.
I think existing condition was already outside. And
I think this is the project we understood why we could not change the sequencing of this particular project the way that it was structured. What could have happened is that you could have shifted traffic to the outside. You could have kept it with a dual operation, finished your inside work, and then crossed them over. From what I understand, it would have required more pavement. Being a design build project, that obviously is a concern. We can't drive those costs back on the contractor. But as you all are looking at them on design bid build projects, the ability to say, hey, there might be a little bit more asphalt that's in place that ends up being temporary asphalt, but gives us the footprint to be able to create those work zones, as you mentioned, is what we want to make sure is in the design plan, so that we can have it function, that we can do it in order that allows us to finally get to the DDI when we can put the pads where the pads belong, and we can. Alternatively, if we cannot, there are other treatments we'd look at, like any kind of like temporary, something to go and control that uncontrolled movement where the pads would cross on the north side, like we saw at Sand Lake, would certainly be desirable. Does that make sense? So we can go to a plan B if we need to go to a plan B. All right. If we can follow up offline, I'm Jeremy Dunbar, I'm TSM&O engineer. Feel free to reach out to me. Go ahead and talk through specific issues, but I thought I'll turn it back to Mr. Burgett.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Next, we have procurement news from Michelle Sloan, Services Manager. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Sloan, and just a few items. Some of them will be repeats, but I have some other stuff to add in as well. Regarding marketing meetings, I'm aware of the struggle many are having trying to get meetings. It's a struggle for us as well. So we are mindful of it. We're looking at the data, trying to find a way to best manage the process. Scott alluded to some of the data. Small group of projects I've looked at. I'm trying to expand the pool right now, but on average, we allow 15 slots and we're having on average 10 of those taken. So that leaves 4 to 5 that are open, but we're seeing that 3 to 4 of them are being canceled. And half of those within 24 hours of the meeting. So firms aren't having enough time to take those slots. We're even having staff make extra meetings, and those extra meetings are getting canceled at the last minute. So it is frustrating. Of those projects where we have an average meeting, 10 firms come in on average. Interestingly, our average of letters received is 10 as well. But of those 10 that come in and market us on average, 3.5 of them don't even submit a letter. And then of those that market us, only half of our shortlist pool is from those that market us. So don't, as I think Scott was the one that alluded, don't can't submit a letter and don't feel like you're not competitive if you're not marketing us. But we want them to be beneficial for you. We want them to be beneficial for us. So we're trying to look at how to best manage this process. Send in your ideas if you have some. I've heard, you know, having just not one-on-ones, having informational sessions. I don't think that that's what industry necessarily wants. So we're trying not to go that route as best we can. So we're wanting to give you some one-on-one time. One of your peers just let me know that they did free up a slot for you on State Road 514, which advertises the end of September. It's 25550, project 434414. So if that is one you're interested in, please go out and take that slot. Mutual gains training. That is something that we have talked about a little bit the past year. It was a training that the agency provided years ago, and there's been a hiatus, and there's been a call for that to come back around. Central office is developing that training. We have some of us have looked over the information and have made comments. They're hoping to do a pilot training. The goal is end of September. I don't have details on where that's going to be or who that's going to be with certainty, but I just want to share that we're hopeful that this will be coming in the near future for both industry and agency to participate in. Industry engagement. I did send out an email this morning for those firms that executed contracts the last quarter of 2024, so April, May, June. You know, reminding them of the opportunity, but you don't have to have executed a contract to take advantage of the time. So if you want to meet, we can meet in person, we can meet in teams. I can come to your office, you can come here. Anything is on the table. Quality, revisions, whatever the case may be. It doesn't have to be procurement activities. Just take the opportunity to share what you're thinking and what you're experiencing. I will say that one of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten from the few I've done this past year is that the district was not doing a good job of providing consultant performance evaluations. So evaluations of industry while you're under contract. So that is something that I've met with Catalina on, and she's meeting with our team. And we are reviewing our processes and making sure that we are adequately giving you that feedback and formal consultant performance evaluations. And then the last thing I had was to hit on workforce development. Scott mentioned that is one of our topics that we are focused on, and I am expecting a large activity spring, summerish in the probably Ocala area. So you may be hearing more about that, but one of the things we want to stress is we want it to be beneficial to you. Don't think that you need to support it just to support us and not get anything out of it. So what are your ideas for it to be beneficial to you so that we can have a successful event and not just lip service? So any questions about any of that? All right, thank you.
Next, we have Gail Woods here. That's the Florida Green Book updates.
Fantastic. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. You didn't tell me I needed a picture. Are really hurt behind that. And let's see how. So why do we have the Green Book? Why do we use the Green Book? This is interactive.
System.
Exactly. It's for off-system projects. And the Green Book is mostly for the local agencies, even though FDOT has some involvement. And it is by Florida statute that we have to use the Green Book. So there are 4 professional engineers that have to serve on the Green Book within each of the districts. So I am FDOT's District 5 consultant representative. We have FDOT has a representative. We have rural county, and then we have urban. So for District 5 is Sumter County. For the rural, it's really no longer rural. So that comprises District 5. So, well, let me go back. What's the date of the Green Book? 2018. So we're going to get into, what year are we now?
It just came.
2024. But the adopted version is 2018. So if you go to the website, this is the website for the Green Book. In the upper left is the Green Book that has been adopted. What we have down here for draft is the 2023. So can you use the 2023? Yes, you can, but it just has not been adopted. So why hasn't it been adopted? It has to go through a rulemaking process. So I'm not going to break down this whole process, but this started, I think it was 2020 when we submitted the Green Book, and it has to go through JAPSI review. So it has been a very iterative process in going from what we submitted back in 2020 to where we are today. So just to make this clear, we have the drafting and the public workshops, the notice of the proposed rule, and the change, a notice of change, and that's when JAPSI goes through and makes their changes. So JAPSI, I had to look it up, is made up of 5 senators and 6 representatives. So these are people that are not familiar with transportation and how we do things. So making it clear enough for them to understand, which is part of the process. So each year that we meet, the committee meets once a year. Each year they tell us that it's going to be adopted. It's going to be adopted. We met in April of 2024, and we heard the same story. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. So this is the table of contents for the Green Book. What does it look like? What does that table of contents remind you of? Look like the old PPM. So now the PPM has changed. The Florida Green Book is going to change as well. And so these are some of the comments that we got from the local agencies when we talked about what do you want to see the Green Book become. See, they want to see it more context-based, context classification. They wanted to mirror the FDM. And they also want to allow the locals flexibility. So this is one of these committees where FDOT is not the rule. It's the local agencies. The local agencies tell FDOT what they want to see. They want to have the leeway to be able to do things that work for their community. So this is just a comparison of some of the changes that you'll see in the 2023 Green Book as opposed to the 2018. This particular one, in the 2018, it just had less than 45. It was all under one pot. But now you see that it's less than 25, and they give the local agencies guidance for that. And then also in the 2023 revision, this has caused numerous confrontations. You want to hide under the table because anytime you have a shall, that means money that the local agencies have to spend. So they want to have the should, giving them the option if they can or cannot do something. And again, this is one of the drafts as far as the definitions that you will see. So again, you do have the option to go ahead and use the 2023 Green Book. It just has not been adopted. So each year we take a picture. So I'm actually right there. So do you have any questions? I am the author of the signing and pavement marking chapter, but it will be reworked. We are looking to make it look similar to the FDM and making it more context-based. Questions? All right, thank you very much.
All right, next is our safety update with Lorraine Bobo, Safety Administrator.
Good to see everybody here. I've been sitting in another room because you guys filled the house. So awesome, good stuff. I'm going to share a little bit of what we've been doing over the last few months in the Office of Safety. And I'm going to share a little bit about a speed limit shields pilot project that we're working on, about the Central Florida Safety Strategic Plan, and then a new website. So anybody drive State Road 46 between like here and Brevard County? Yep. So people fly through there. It is just a straight shot. And so we wanted to look at this and see if there's a way that we can slow people down without changing geometry, things like that. So we decided to, like I said, it's a pilot. We want to see like, what does the spacing look like? What works best on really getting people to slow their speed down and hopefully staying at those slower speeds. And by slower speeds, I mean, go the speed limit. Let's be clear, right? So we have 3 kind of test sections. In the first segment, we just have one, and it's at where the stop sign, the speed limit sign is. The next one, quarter mile spacing, so they're a little bit further apart. And then in this last one, every 400 feet. So you're like, okay, I got to go 55, 55, 55, 55. And so this is just how much they cost. So it's a fairly inexpensive way to try to affect that behavioral change in folks as they're driving through. So this is just showing what speeds folks are going. People are going up to 75 through there. Okay, so this is what I'll show you. So these are preliminary, right? We just put them down back in March, I think it was. We're going to go back out in October, go back out in April to see if we're still affecting that change. And it wasn't just, okay, I saw that, I'm going to keep doing what I need to. What's really exciting is that we found our biggest decrease in speed in those really high speeds. So those people that are going, 70, 65, they're the ones that are changing their behaviors the most, which is exactly what we want to happen, right? So we were really excited to see those results. Hopefully in a year from now, we'll be able to come back and say, we're keeping them down at that 55 mile per hour speed limit. And I don't want to misspeak, but I don't think we've had any crashes related to speed since we put them out there. So I really just wanted to share this because those before and after studies are really important, right? So we put stuff out there. Is it affecting a change? Bigger picture, we are looking at 57 different projects right now that District 5 has put out. Our office was created about 3 years ago. You probably heard me starting to talk about we're going to do before and after studies, right? Well, now we're in that phase where those projects that were in design, that design has completed, now they're in construction, and maybe they're starting to finish their construction. And now we can look at the speeds before, what was the target speed we set, the speeds after. And then are we maintaining those speeds? Are we reducing those crashes? So it's probably one of the #1 topics I get asked about is, well, is what we're doing working? Is it helping? Is it saving lives? And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to share that we are. And I think that data is going to be really helpful as well, because it'll help all of us as engineers, as, you know, folks that are really wanting to reduce fatalities to 0. Is this, you know, countermeasure effective? These two countermeasures are together. Are they even more effective? You know, is lane narrowing getting people to go the speed limit, those types of things. So I'm really excited to be able to share that data with you. Right. Okay, very good. Let's go. Okay, so as you know, every day in Central or in Florida, we lose, it says 8, we actually lose closer to 9 people a day in Florida on our roadways. People that woke up, had breakfast with their family, they're going to baseball practice tonight, and then they can't because they're involved in a crash. So this is really why I've been doing what we've been doing. There we go. And in most crashes, a contributing factor is behavior. I'm sure most of you have heard me say this, but this ties into our, this is just our Office of Safety team. We've had some new additions recently. If you didn't hear, we included industrial safety and health earlier this year. So now we're one big happy safety family dealing with all things safety, which I think ties in well. Industrial safety and health is making sure that our workers are safe. Well, that's part of traffic safety, right? MOT and things like that. So we've had a lot of good overlaps. That leads me to our Central Florida Safety Strategic Plan. You just heard about our Central Florida Safety Strategic Plan. Right, good. So I wanted to share that part about the behaviors that you guys are here, you're engineers, you are making positive impacts on our roadways every single day when you make those decisions as an engineer. That is great. Keep doing it. But if the driver still has this out, we can have the safest roadway possible. But if they're making unsafe behavior choices, we're not going to get to 0, right? So it's all of those things need to be working together. So that's why we started working on the Central Florida Safety Strategic Plan. Last year in District 5, we lost 730 people. It's the most out of any district in FDOT. You can't really compare the districts. We're all very different. Rural, urban, 17 counties versus 9 counties, 2 counties, you know, it's all very different. I'm happy to report that we have the lowest rate. I'm going to go with one of the lowest rates just in case I'm wrong, which means that we have less fatalities per million miles traveled, right? That's great. Sometimes we need okay, we're doing good, right? But I don't want to lose sight that that's 730 people that lost their lives, families affected, you know, affected forever, which is why we're going to continue to do what we're doing. So we started developing the safety strategic plan, and what you'll see is that we reached out to not only internal DOT, but we reached out to our partners. This is very purposefully a Central Florida Safety Strategic Plan, not an FDOT Safety Strategic Plan. We are doing this in concert with our partners, cities, counties, advocacy groups, the hospitals, all of the above. What can we collectively do to get to zero? So, like I said, this is a collaborative plan. We got over 450 unique ideas from those workshops, and distilled them down into action steps. And this graphic is just showing that communities are at the heart of everything that we do. And these are all of our different partners that are going to help us get there. I'll just go back once real quick. We're going to continue focusing on that infrastructure, but we're also going to focus on those behaviors. So this is the plan. You can find it on our new website, fdot.gov/D5safety. Urge you to check it out. Good. Okay, so those action steps, those 450 unique ideas that I mentioned, were kind of whittled down into these three main categories. Increasing our collaboration. That's how can we work together? We're all probably doing very similar things. How can we do those together in concert and make an even bigger impact? Thinking beyond infrastructure. That's where you're going to find a lot of those behavioral things, getting into the schools, doing walk and talks with our elected officials, that type of thing. And then that continued focus on safety, that's where you're going to find the infrastructure. That's where you're going to find those before and after. What can we learn from those? Type of thing. So we are putting together a steering committee. That steering committee is going to be made up of elected officials, county city managers, county city engineers, those types of folks. But we're from those, that steering committee is going to say, go forth and conquer on these action steps, right? And we're going to be putting together focus groups, and that's where folks like you guys come in. A lot of you have already reached out wanting to be a part of this. You're going to be the helpers, the doers, right? And really making progress on those things. So please stay tuned. Right now, the plan is to have that steering committee meeting on October 4th. So we'll have some guidance after that. We're already kind of working on a lot of them, but they'll help us make sure we're moving in the right direction. I'm going to skip this video in the essence of time, but it will be on our website. It's just an overview of the Safety Summit and those that got awards and our panel and all that. It was a really, really great day. Just everybody kind of who was able to be there. All right, good. I got a lot out of that day. I think it was really kind of a call to action for our entire Central Florida partners and community of just like, we've got to continue down this path and make a real difference. So my call to action to you all is think about your role within your company, your agency, your community. How can you make an impact? Think about your personal life. You know, how can every single one of us is a safety champion, right? With our family members, our Cub Scout meeting on Thursday, and we're going to be talking about wearing bicycle helmets, right? They heard me say it last year, but can't say it enough. So think about where you have an impact. This is our new website. This is only a piece of it. There's other stuff up top. Click on the Central Florida Safety Strategic Plan button to actually see the plan. Eventually we'll have the steering committee up there and what is going on with that plan. Volunteer with us. Every event that we do, come on out. We'll get you the materials. We just need to show up, right? And help share those messages. Last year, we held 95 outreach events in District 5. Secretary challenge is to 125, and we've already reached over 100. It's August. Yeah, it's August. I don't know, time's flying. The point is, we are out there in the community. So, you know, 2 to 3 times a week, we are talking with our neighbors, our friends, people that we don't know because we want them to go home. So we invite you to be part of that. All of our newsletters, the 9th edition just came out a few weeks ago. If you don't get that, email me. I will get you on there. This is just safety resources that kind of link back to central office. We have a community traffic safety team in every single district and have more information there on those. And then the overall Target Zero initiative. So just Arrive Alive this week is kind of, next week is depends on Labor Day. Is the 100 deadly days of summer for our teenagers. You know, boys are only 10 and 13, but gosh darn it, they know that they will always be wearing their seatbelt, not touching phones when they get one, that type of thing when they're drivers. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Please reach out to me. If you have any questions, you want to know how you can get involved. P5 safety ideas is for those, hey, never tried this. I don't know, let's try it. And I really see an issue here, so we'll dig into it. And that type of thing. I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
So, sorry, Jeremy already spoke. Our slides out of order. Now we're gonna have just another 3-minute quick break. And coming back, we're gonna have our district roadway engineer, here Isaac, share with us design lessons learned.
Okay, so I'll just, I know I don't have time, but I'll go ahead and, there are two questions we were asked in the earlier presentation. One of them was cross sections, if we still show the, I think earthwork, no, that won't be shown. You'll be doing cross section the way you are doing them today from the model. The only thing is gonna be a little bit more labeled inside this earthwork shown on the columns of the earthwork we used to have. And then there was a question about FC5 in wet condition, just like anything. See wet condition, that's a safety issue. We need to talk about that. It makes some sense. Seeing those kind of crashes, we feel like that to use FC5. I wanted to clarify on that, but then my topic here, design lessons and best practice. These are actual projects I'll be showing here. Some of them are lessons learned, things that we learn from, so we can make it better next time, or some of them is just best practice that we see. So my first is roundabouts. One of the things we're seeing on roundabouts when it comes to MOT, especially on high speed, is the way the roundabout is phased. If you have two lanes on each side, you probably build half of the roundabout, and you use the other half of the roadway for two-way traffic. And that's what we have been doing. And most of the time comes to the separation on the traffic. In most cases, and this is allowed, this is per criteria, in most cases you use this kind of separation where you use the traffic separator curb like that one with tubular markers on top of it. We have had some few cases on high speed where we had crashes. And one of the questions I got is why you didn't use the barrier wall in that case. So I wanted to bring this up, and I know we do more and more roundabouts. When you do that, especially if you already have high speed condition, and depending on the geometry, you may want to consider something like barrier wall in that case, instead of this kind of separation. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. I'll skip this one because it's talking about the same thing. And then another thing on roundabouts, especially on Mater Lane roundabout, something we call path overlap. That has been an issue. This is the roundabout. This is existing. You may know where it is. I don't want to say the name and where the project is, but I'll show it. So you see the path overlap. You can see those arrows in blue and green. What it is if you don't design it right, somebody from the outside may find themselves when they get into the circle in the inside. That's the path overlap. There's a way to design it. You introduce like a tangent, and people who are designing roundabouts, they will know what I'm saying. So the fix for this one that we are proposing right now is to put delineators. So you can see once you put in the delineators, if somebody's on the outside, it's not easy to get into in the inside. But this shouldn't be done. That you need to design it in such a way that when somebody's in the outside or inside, they are just direct to the right lane when they get into the roundabout. So the path overlap is an issue that you really need to look into if you're designing multi-lane roundabouts. So that's another issue I wanted to talk about. And this is just talking about the delineators that we use. Zikra Zipa is one of them. That's a maintenance issue. Depends on what you want to do. But the one at the bottom there, that's the one that you can use too. If that's what, but normally you just have to design it in such a way that an issue, the path overlap. And then there's another thing we have been doing. We have been trying overhead signs on roundabouts, because one of the things about roundabouts, especially on Mater Lane, is how do you make sure that people are on the right lane? People sometimes don't read those markings we put on the pavement. So at least there's one roundabout that I know we are proposing. Right, two now. We are proposing overhead signs to make sure that people can see that sign and be on the right lane there. That's one of the issues that we have with the roundabouts, people not knowing where they need to be, depending on where they're going. So let me go to the next thing I want to talk about, pavement design for maintenance resurfacing. So maintenance resurfacing, that's, when we talk about pavement only, with District 5, what we are doing today, a little bit different from what you're used to. Because what we mean by pavement only is we'll be doing pavement, and that's it. We won't be following chapter 114. We won't be doing everything we're doing on the surfacing. But then there's a confusion between that and the criteria that, as we know it, for maintenance resurfacing projects. So being at the beginning, now it's not as much, but at the beginning I was getting letters and I was having discussions in marketing meetings where someone will bring up the criteria for maintenance resurfacing. But what we are doing is we are still designing the pavement as if it's a resurfacing project, as if it's a triple R. We don't follow the maintenance resurfacing criteria for designing pavement. The only difference is we call it pavement only because we are only doing pavement. We are not doing all the things we used to do on chapter 114. That's what it means. But it's different from maintenance. So we're still designing minimum design of 15 years. We were doing 20, now we're doing 15. Martha had a presentation talking about that. The next thing is saying existing structural number is higher than the required. That's not true because in our projects are just like resurfacing. Primary purpose is to restore function, condition, not add structural capacity. That's not true either. We are actually designing and adding structural capacity on our project. Pavement design package must document that additional structural capacity is not needed to achieve the design. That's not true. You don't need to do that. All this stuff is not true. I wanted to point out that because, and I know by now people, we have been doing payment on the projects for a while. People get it, but I just wanted to make sure I clarify that. We take these criteria and we tweak them a little bit depending on how we want to use them on at our district. Another thing I wanted to talk about longitudinal grooving. We did a project on I-95. This was the pavement. This was concrete pavement. We did it in house here. I was the engineer of record. That was the first project because we had to do a lot of research, come up with the specs. That's the first project we did longitudinal grooving because normally we do transversal grooving. And the reason why we did that because of kind of trying to increase the friction because of hydroplaning and issues we were seeing there. So we did it and it was very successful. Construction came and I think one of the quality forum, if you remember, they did a presentation where they showed how much the friction has increased. So there was a discussion at that time to do pilots on this would be dense graded. And you know, I went to a meeting the other day and there was District 1 is already doing a pilot on steroid 50 longitudinal grooving. So I wanted to bring this up because you may have some, you know, those cases where you have substandard super elevated curve. You're seeing running off the road and you want to increase friction. In some cases, we're using the high friction pavement, but if you don't have all those options, this may be one of the options. We can do a pilot project on dense graded and do that longitudinal grooving like we did on I-95. That's something you should keep in mind just in case you have a project like that. Another thing I wanted to talk about in my discussion with central office, again, there is something called alternative friction cost. I've not used this. This is another pilot we can do. And this probably is, this is between the dense graded and FC5. It's not as permeable as FC5, but it's more permeable than dense graded. And so it's between FC5 and dense graded. So it has a developmental spec right now. So if you have a project like the project, what we were talking about, you have wet condition, but at the same time, you know, FC5 ravels, it's not as durable. You can use this alternative friction because we can do a pilot. And I'm looking for a project so I can do a pilot and work with central office and see what happens with this one. This is a different kind of pavement that's in between FC5 and dense graded. So keep that in mind. So one thing I wanted to talk about, we did a project. This project, we used the Acro Bridge. This is another project I want to talk about. This one of the interesting things we did was MOT, the way we did it, because we had Acro Bridge. We didn't have a lot of way, and this was in a swamp. So we had environmental issues. We didn't have a lot of way. The only way we could do a diversion is put in like 1-lane diversion. This was remote area. There was like 2 residential houses, I remember, and probably 1 business around there. One of the things we learned about is even if you have 1 house, you need to do you need to reach out to the public and stakeholders. So when we reached out, we found out that those two houses, there is a school bus that passes there. If we take out that bridge and cross that road, those kids won't be able to go to school. It's just two houses, but and when we did the coordination with the stakeholders, we started finding out, we talked to the school board and found out that there's a school out there. We talked to the businesses and they started claiming business if we take out the bridge. And the detour was so long because it's a remote area. The only way we could detour was like 20 miles going up. So we decided to do this acro bridge. The way we did it was put the acro bridge, put a diversion. In the next slide, we show the diversion. Put the diversion there. And this is just one way. As we were working here, so what we did is like a flagging operation where you have one way, one traffic goes at a time, one side goes at the time. That instead of having flaggers, you have temporary signals that are pre-timed. So that's what we did. Another lesson we learned when we started doing this is if non-peak hours, when one side has more traffic than the other, they're getting equal green. So people get tired of waiting, they get impatient, and they started moving. So they just violate the traffic signal. So we decided to put the police officer there. So that's another thing you can do. I thought that's a very good, if you have that kind of situation, you can use acro bridge and you can use temporary signals, just like a flagging operation. I think that was a good thing, very good best practice. The last thing I want to talk about, lane closure analysis. So this has to do with quality. What we have been seeing, the lane closure analysis, we have been seeing errors in this lane closure analysis. When you make a mistake in lane closure analysis, you can increase congestion during construction. That into errors and omission. Claims, we get claims from the contractors. So far, I think recently I've seen 2 projects. So I wanted to talk about this because what we are seeing is you got different factors you're using. The ATC there is actual traffic counts. The D is a directional factor and RTF is a remaining traffic factor. So what I'm showing there is, I'll go one more slide here. So we get, I think you get your traffic from further traffic online. So you have to be careful when you get that traffic because you can get the traffic for both directions and you can get the traffic for one direction. So if you're using traffic for one direction, that's already directional. Your D, which is directional factor, has to be 1. The common mistake we are seeing is people are taking the directional traffic and apply the D of 0.5, whatever it is. Now, all of a sudden, you're using that quarter of a traffic. You are just putting in a factor for the traffic that's already directional. That's a common mistake we're seeing, and we keep seeing this again and again. One of the things is if you're doing lane closure analysis and you know this roadway is congested, you know that, and your results are telling you that there's no any restriction. That's a red flag right there. You should look at your calculations again, look at your traffic and look at your factors. This one here, I'm just talking about, if you have a signalized intersection, the factor G/C, which is green time over total cycle length, should be between 0.4 and 0.5. One more thing on this slide is you have to ensure there's sufficient work time. The minimum is 10 hours. If you don't get 10 hours, the process. We have to get approval from our central office to be is less than 10. Questions? Yes.
You mentioned a few projects that D5 is doing with longitudinal grooving. Is that just on asphalt pavement or are there projects on?
The one we did on I-95, that was concrete. We started discussion about doing it on asphalt. And then I found out that they're already doing some on asphalt. The example is State Road 60 I gave on District 1. So I'm asking everybody, if you see a project where you think we can do it, you want to increase, friction, and you can't do the construction, you can bring up the substandard, super elevated curve to standard. Let me know if you see this is a good project for that. We can do a part of. That's what I was saying. Go ahead.
For your 2-way 1-lane diversion, did you use a temporary signal or an auto flagger?
No, temporary signal.
Was a temporary?
Yes. So what I said is like a fragging operation, instead of using fraggers, we put signals.
They also have the auto flagger, which is just like that, but
Oh, no, we use the signal. Okay, I know what you're saying now. You use the signal.
More guidance for high friction surface treatment somewhere, because it's not in the.
Yeah, no, that's something I can discuss with central office and see.
If we're going away from SC5, if this is a good application on top of,
I understand what you're saying. That's something I can discuss with central office.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Last item of the day, construction lessons learned. No picture.
Very good to be fast. But we're hoping that this will go fast. I guess this. So.
No, that was fast.
My name is Esther Montoya. I'm District 5 Construction Program Manager. I'm here today with Ihab Abdel Maksud. He's our constructability specialist, and we're gonna be talking about construction lessons learned. So we have a very quick agenda. We're gonna go over some major areas of improvement, specifically communication and coordination, the importance of site visits, and understanding the intent of the plans or the directions that we're giving the contractors. I'm gonna be providing some examples, and we're gonna be offering some recommendations. And last, we're gonna be talking a little bit about the EOR expectations during the Q&As.
The major area for we've noticed need to be improved, actually the communication and coordination. Especially when it comes to the detour coordination, we see like a lack of coordination between the communities, business owner, emergency services that have been left out during the coordination. For the next one here, for maintaining agency, the capability for the maintaining agency, sometimes they need to know what type of equipment that we're proposing to their intersection. So we need to know the capability if they can handle equipment or no. So sometimes also we need to address their comment. Well, driveway owners, they're not aware of the proposed coming to their driveway as well. Previous agreement sometimes is not really taken care and being included in the plans. Sometimes we agree on something and the stakeholder be like surprised. We build it differently, so they feel like we're ignoring them. So that's why the site visit here, sometimes also we need to see improvement in the site visit as well. This will save us a lot of headache. For example, there's a example here for the driveway, existing driveway not being actually considered. I remember the project was called for about maybe 72 driveway. Only 50 of them were addressed. Other 22 were like left out. So you can imagine the headache of like the coordination for the 22 construction. Was a lot of headache actually along with the budget for this one. Some business owner, they don't want you to touch the driveway during the weekend, etc. So also the proposed for the driveway actually sometimes not meeting the business need, and the existing sometimes condition will not really evaluate and taking care of the the design process well. And the next one, the plan quality intended direction. We've noticed a lot of error for the plan errors, TTCB plan errors have like sometimes conflict and not clear, lack of additional details that needed to actually deliver the message for what the intent from the plan need to.
So detours, we wanted to share some of our lessons learned with detours. Recently reviewed a project that added a significant detour to the community. This detour was presented in the plans to last about 6 months and increase it about 30 minutes the user commute. That is typically not acceptable. We discovered this during construction once we were implementing the detour and we received a lot of complaints. That's not the right way of doing it. Unfortunately, the local agencies and the communities were aware that the project was happening. They were not involved in the detour information. So it's very important for us to keep an eye on that. At least on this particular project, the EOR was able to redesign. They created additional MOT phases. Like I mentioned, we had to deal with a lot of headaches, a lot of complaints from our community, and that's the last thing we want to do. Construction projects are not intended to affect our communities as severe as this particular example. So we had to do a lot of extra coordination. We had to stop the operations from the contractor, and that obviously creates a lot of cost and schedule delays. So in this project, that delay cost about $500,000. And that's just one example, right? We have several other projects where we're seeing similar situations. So some of the recommendations is if you're planning a detour, especially if it's gonna be this extensive, that should be your last option. And if that's the only option, you need to work with our office of construction, we're our design and maintenance office. You have to get your local agencies and stakeholders involved ahead. It cannot be a surprise. Continue with the communication and coordination. As we have mentioned, we've noticed that a lot of driveway agreements are not being included in the plans. We go to construction, we do everything that the plans say, and then we have to go back and redo the work. That obviously cause a lot of issues with cost and time. And our industry also like to do rework. It's not efficient for anybody. It's not efficient for our contractors. It's not efficient for the department. Another big item is local agencies. We receive a few complaints that either local agencies are not being included during their review of the plans, or they're not being, their comments are not being addressed. And it's very important for us to either provide a good, reasonable response, even if we're not able to meet the requirements. Especially when it comes to signals. That's the major items. That's what basically stops a construction work. And it's, sometimes it's the minimum part of the project. We come to discover that plans are not very clear. We're adding signal or devices that are not compatible with the local agencies. And just a reminder, every single local agency has their own specification. It has their own proprietary devices, and that needs to be coordinated with our traffic operations way, way early in the plan's development. Again, all of these issues produce a lot of costs, a lot of delays, a lot of complaints. We lose the trust with our local partners, right? And that's one of the things that we try to avoid, especially because we work directly with them every single day. We need to maintain our relationships. So again, recommendation, go back and review. I believe traffic operations, and I don't know if they're here, but they have a list and they have all the specifications from all local partners. It's available for everybody. Just go and look for it. If you're working with one of the local agencies, please just list it in the plans. Sometimes we start construction and we don't know who's the maintaining agency. It takes a lot of time. Contractors are not very good at going after the cities and counties, and sometimes that can create some delays to our projects. And again, if you have agreements, just make sure that they're included in the plans. And another thing that it's just a reminder, site visits are very important. Everybody's doing them. We're discovering that a lot of issues that can be addressed in our plans early are not being addressed, obviously. Very minor things that can be noted once you're doing your site visits, such as manholes. If you're gonna do anything that is gonna impact the manholes, please make sure to include it. If you're gonna relocate pool boxes, that needs to be addressed in the plans. Another thing is, it's very important when you're retrofitting, if you're gonna touch any of the existing drainage structures, if you're gonna use any existing fiber, that you need to confirm that the information is correct. This is something that we actually talked in our last quality forum. Slack, if you're stating in your plans that you need to reuse the slack that we have, we go to construction and the slack is not available. That needs to be physically confirmed before you develop or put that note in the plans, because it's very significant. It does impact our construction. And with the significant lead time that it's taken for some of those, ITS or anything that is related to signal, is taking significant time. So it has to be addressed.
So another example here for the site visit and how important the site visit, just an example. This is the business owner. So this is the business owner when they have like semi-truck, like everyday delivers here. And somehow we just designed for as 24 feet, as you can see here. And this is like not really working well. So that's why they have to stop the traffic every time when they have a delivery. So we come back again, we redesign it, as you can see, to give them like 44 feet. And we built again like an extra concrete bed to control the maneuver of the trucks. So this is site visit will really save us like a lot of headache if there is site visit to see the business owner needs, if this driveway really will serve them properly or no. And then this is just the cost for this one, $28,000, and we had to add another 4 days for the contract time. Next one here, okay, this is another example, just like this for the crane business. So we already accommodate for the 60 feet for the driveway, which is good, but we forget to consider how the thickness for the driveway will be. This is designed to be like 4-inch. You guys, you can tell it didn't work well, and start cracking the next day, and we had to come back again and demo everything. So we redesign and reconstruct it again, and the cost about maybe 77,000, an additional of 5 days. And that's another example. This for the blank quality and direction. Sometimes we don't need really to detect the means and method to the contractor, tell them what to do actually, but sometimes we need to be more realistic. Because if you see the notes here, it says we have a window for about maybe 8 or 9 hours window, but we ask them to install the pipe run, which is about maybe 30 feet high. They need to dig up the whole 30 feet. They need to come back and open for traffic for the next day. This is like doesn't make sense. So that's why note for here will help to tell them at least for this section need to be jack and bolt, So all the contractor will basically, they know what's coming in their way. Another plan here within the direction, the need for additional note and direction for the bit signals here. Sometimes notice this a lot. Sometimes the bit signals fall into the construction zone, and we do have bit items for cables, but we don't know their location. They always keep asking where the location. We need to know the location. So whenever if we know that the bit signals will fall into the construction zone, these make sure to provide the location for this as well. Another conflict and plan, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes we do have the general notes for the TTC plan say something, and the phase note says something totally different. That's why we need to have consistency, make sure we know what we're doing here. For example, here, the general note says there is no link closure, but if you go to the phase notes, no, there is link closure in the night or whatever for this time to this time. Because they are conflict. The next one here, sorry. There's another one here. Sometimes when it comes to the building repair procedure, we've noticed sometimes the designer include the cost for removing and replacing the concrete item for 160.94, which is this is not accurate because we do have special pay items for this one, 400-4-4 for like remove and replace concrete. So we don't need to double that sometimes. We've noticed have this happening to be the sole contract sometimes. So we just need to be mindful for.
So missing pay items. We've noticed a lot of the issues that we're seeing that are adding a lot of cost or contracts is because we're missing pay items. So these are just the more common ones, just to remind yourselves and your teams that if you're gonna be resetting some pavers to use the proper pay items, special detours, this is very important. If you're providing a special detour, keep in mind that the restoration markings, additional concrete, additional asphalt, that needs to be paid separate, and you need to address it as part of your normal pay items. Also, we're noticing a lot of people are using clearing and graving to describe removal of concrete. That's not ideal. We want to use a separate pay item for that because it's not the same level of operation, level of equipment. So just bear that in mind. And if you're proposing any work that is going to impact the traffic signals, if you need to move traffic heads, or if your intersection will need to go dark, we need to make sure that we're including the traffic control plan, because that's another item that our industry is noting. We're not including the proper pay items. And EOR expectations during bid Q&A. So as a district, we expect the EORs to provide a prompt, typically as a 24-hour turnaround. We understand that sometimes you need to do additional research, but we ask that at least you acknowledge and let us know how much time is needed to provide an accurate response. We need to be working together. We try our best to meet with our designers, with all of our teams. But we need to continue that communication. Another thing that we're noticing is that when it comes to revisions, EORs are delaying the revision because they're waiting to see if we have any additional comments or questions. That's not ideal because our contractors do expect to provide a good, accurate bid. And the longer we delay that, the more impact we're gonna see on that. We do expect that plan revisions are getting done as fast as possible. And the quality of the plans, you heard it many times today, we're struggling with that. I can tell you right now that in our encumbrance, that it's only for essays and overruns, we have about $12 million as of today. And this is what, month 3 of the new fiscal year? It's a significant impact and we need to start reducing that. And the only way to do it is with your collaboration. So you need to put a lot of emphasis in your QC plan, especially when it comes to pay items. I can tell you that recently we issue an essay for a plant bust. It seems like one of the phases was missed completely from the asphalt and ended up costing the department about $2 million for one project. And right now we have several projects where we've seen overruns costing close to $1 million. So it's been significant, it's impacting the district, and we need your collaboration with that. And the other reminder is, if you're gonna be submitting any revisions, that quality needs to be in place. We've been sending back some of those revisions to be revised before we can issue the addenda because of the quality. And it's very important, again, as I mentioned, we need to be able to provide a very fast. And with that, I want to thank you, everybody, for your time. I know it's only 5 minutes left. I do want to share who the construction coordination groups, they're the ones that deal with all of the Q&As and the constructability reviews is Wilmarie Datil, EHAB, Ideas, and Joandy Flores. If you need anything from us, we're always here and available. And I'll open it to questions.
The driveway implementation, what's not being included? The driveway agreement, or is it the actual driveway shown in the plans?
The driveway, so the commitments. If we have a commitment, if we have something that needs to be included as a detail in the plans, it seems like it's missing. So we're having to do a lot of work. Anything else?
If the existing driveway width was 24, we provided 24, we send them no defect. They don't sign off. We don't know their operation.
So one of the things, as I mentioned, is the coordination. We need to make sure that we're at least collecting the comments from the users, right? Yes, I do understand that some businesses don't like to work with the department.
They don't show up in a public meeting, they don't meet, we call them to.
Correct.
In that case, and then they, when construction goes to it, complain that, oh, my driveway needed to be now 24. Over you already having 24, you're working through it, provided the same. Minimize construction cost on our end.
So part of our PIO, when we start construction, we go door by door. We do talk to everybody. And the more common response is that we knew, but nobody came to us to tell me what the specific impact I was having in my driveway. And I know that's not reasonable to us to think that you're gonna do the same door-to-door approach, but it's very important if you have done so, that we get ahead of that. Because again, we work around our communities and the last thing we wanna do is impact their everything.
That's why the site visit is really important to know if the driveway, for example, the 24 feet, will really serve the need for the customer, or for the business, that's why the site visit, not just for the driveway, sometimes the type of the driveway, if like include some breaks or something that you need to include, a pavement like reset sometimes, stuff like that.
Thank you very much.
There's just a few things I want to talk about today. Though, if you guys would reach out anytime. I'm sorry, I don't have my contact information this time, but I forget. You can reach out anytime with any ideas about what you'd like to see at these quality forums, of how we could improve things, people you don't want to see again. Anyway, feedback is always appreciated. And with that, go bananas.
Yeah, right.
Uh,